All right. All right. Shalom. Shalom. First and foremost, we want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, YAHAWASHI, Bahasham, Racha, Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And we're back again with another Sabbath Sanctuary, episode 56. The world is at the brink of disaster. And yeah, needless to say, I mean, we can all see how it's going so far. They have the how it started versus how it's going, and it's funny. A thought just came to my mind how you have, and that's going to go along with this precept that I have here. But you had the ending of last year, this tradition that a lot of Babylonians like to post, where they'll say, "Oh, this year was a high, but next year will be my year," and they literally post it at the end of every year, and then the next year is worse than the first, or worse than the one that they were just in. But as we're seeing with this whole energy turmoil and crisis going on, and how it's also very interesting that it's the energy that's being affected. Like, it's interesting because it's we're on the verge of literally an entire global world war, but the main talk is about energy, right? Which goes to show you that there's some strategic engineering, and manufacturing going on here in terms of this crisis, because once again, I've mentioned this many times, but Iran has threatened before that they would close the Strait of Hormuz, right? And these analysts and these economists and so on, they know what ripple effects that would have. So for Babylon and Israel to go ahead and do that, knowing the dangers of it, it goes to show you that obviously it's deliberate. And what they wanted, as they've been saying, is that poly crisis, and this lack of energy is a perfect storm, that brings that about. Okay, it's a perfect storm that brings all these things. Now I have a precept here that I'm going to start with, Second Ezra, the 16th chapter, and I'll start at verse 18. Second Ezra 16 and 18, and it reads, "The beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars, and the powers shall stand in fear. The beginning of evils, what shall I do when these evils shall come?" And that's what we're seeing, right? We're seeing the beginning of famine and great death. We're seeing the beginning of wars. All right. But a lot of people are, purposely, now it's to the point where it's not like they're just coincidentally ignorant of it. No, a lot of them are purposely ignorant of it. They tell themselves, I don't want to hear it because it's scary news. So I avoid, watching the news, or I avoid looking at the posts of what's going on. I'm not gonna let that stop me from living my life. And that is an example of the latter part of that precept in Proverbs, which says that the prudent man foreseeth the evil and hide himself, but the simple pass on and are destroyed. Right. So that's an example of them passing on, because they refuse or blatantly to be prudent. Right. They refuse, even though right now information is literally at the tip of your fingers. You literally, sometimes you don't even need to go and look for it. It comes looking for you through notifications, but they are actually doing laborsome work to avoid it, and that's keeping them simple. And when these plagues come knocking, they're gonna find these people, and then that's the time when they're gonna be seeking help, and they're not gonna get it. So as it says, verse 19, "Behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment." And they don't see that these things that are happening, the beginning of sorrows, is the beginning of their sorrows. And it's sent for their amendment to correct your ways. Verse 20, "But for all these things they shall not turn from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of the scourges." And that's the main part that I wanted to get over there, is that the entire world is literally on the brink of disaster, and the people who are going to be affected by this disaster are not being mindful of the scourges, and they're not being mindful to turn from their wickedness. In fact, they continue in it, and they want to do it with a peace of mind. But yeah, you got it.
Hey, Khan. And something that you had mentioned made me think of the scripture here in the book of Proverbs, chapter 1. I'm gonna read it in the KJV, then I read it in the NLT. The NLT. It says, You know what? Let's start at 20. Let's start at 26. It says, I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear cometh. And, where we have been seeing as this truth has been, reaching the ends of the earth and has become more and more popularized, which is all according to prophecy, right? The Lord said that this word will go throughout the four corners of the earth, and then the end shall come. But we know with that comes the mocking and the scoffing and the rejection, right? As Yahushua said, that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected of this generation. And how is the Lord being rejected of this generation is via his servants, the prophets, because this isn't our message, right? Yahweh said that he that despiseth you despiseth me. So the fact that people make fun and make light of this ministry, which really is it's the ministry of reconciliation, right? It's the ministry for you to be, speaking of Israel, for you to be reconciled back into the Father before his wrath comes, as it says in Zephaniah, right? Gather yourselves together before the day that burns like a chaff, right? Before the wrath of the Lord comes. But yet you see people, doing the complete opposite, right? They're actually coming up against what the Lord gives you in order for you to be reconciled unto him. So when that time comes, when the doors of reconciliation are closed, right? When the bridegroom closes the doors and you're left on the outside, that's when you're going to get laughed at. That's when you're going to get mocked, because the Lord isn't mocked, right? The Lord always gets the last laugh. Matter of fact, he is putting you in a position to laugh at him now so that he can laugh at you later. And that's what a lot of people don't even understand, that the deceived and the deceiver is in the hand of the Lord, and we give that warning and we let people know, but only the wise are going to hear it. Only those that are of the Most High is going to hear it. And that is why we always say this is only for the elect, right? The videos that we do, the information that we bring out, the fact that we speak about how the wicked moves, and the recompense of the wicked is really to warn the elect, as the scripture says, that smite the scorner and the simple shall be wise. Because we all were simple at one point, right? But when we heard this word, we got serious. We got the knowledge of the Lord, came into our lives, and we sobered up, right? And this world is full off of the drunkenness of the wine of this devil's immoralities. And some people don't even want to be sober, right? You got people that are, spiritual alcoholics, right? They just consistently want to just keep drinking that juice. But guess what? Eventually, the consequence of, indulging in a drunken lifestyle is going to, be a reality. And that hangover, right? That feeling that you get when you drink too much, that's what is going to happen on a spiritual and a reality level when this disaster comes upon you, where you're throwing up, where you anything that you try to eat, right, to try to make you feel better, it only makes you feel worse. And that's what's going to happen with these people. They're going to try to look for aid and look for succor and look for things that make them feel better. And they're just going to find themselves even in a worse case, to the point where it's like they see something that used to, like food, for example, when you're drunk or when you're hungover, something that you would like to indulge in is going to become detestable to you at that point. So thinking about being in crowds, right? Going to certain places that seem, fun before the disaster comes. Now that's going to be something like you're going to try to avoid, because it's all going to just be turned to you as an evil thing, right? It reads on. It says, where were we? It says, but I will also laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear cometh. When your fear cometh as desolation, and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind. When distress and anguish cometh upon you. When distress and anguish cometh upon you, then shall ye call upon me, but I will not answer. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. And that's what you always see happening, right? You see it in movies, you see it in real life. When people are in a position of danger, right? Who do they call? They don't call Ghostbusters, right? they don't call, and the first instinct isn't to call 911. The first thing they say is, "Oh my God, oh Jesus!" Like that's just an instantaneous thing that comes to people's mind, because they're looking for a power that is stronger than them, something, divine intervention to get them out of this, dire situation that they're in. And that's what's going to be happening on a wide scale here in America. Because everybody has their comforts, right? They have um, their gods that they put their trust in, and that all of that is going to be exhausted, whether it be your money, right? That's you're gonna find that to be of no avail. Whether it be your so-called community and the people that you have around you, they're all the scripture tells you that friends are going to fight each other like enemies, right? That a man should have no pity upon his neighbor. You're going to have people that were friends that when shit hits the fan, it, you could have been friends for 10, 20 years. But guess what? When there's a limited supply of food and your so-called friend needs to feed their 2-year-old child, to you, to them, you're of no your life is worthless to them. In their mind, my child is going to be worth your life, and they will easily, give you up in order to try to feed their child. But then it's going to get to a point where they're even going to eat their own children, because when it's between you or the child, and as brothers always going into, when you reach a point of starvation, you become primitive, right? You become in a mindset to where, oh, now it's a survival of the fittest. Now it's I gotta preserve myself, and whatever the cost of that is, it doesn't matter. And people are not equipped to be disciplined, right? The scriptures talks about how incontinency is going to grow. Okay. And you see how that will easily happen in especially here in America. It's not like Gaza where people look alike and they have the same shared values. So they all going through this carnage and everything, but they got the same beliefs. They have the same core values. So they can somewhat, band together and say, we're going to ride this out together. Here in Babylon, the person literally next to you can worship a different God, look different, have different political values, right? Everything is confused. And that's why this place is going to be easily broken. And the minds of people are going to be so easily, divided. Um, verse Salakia, verse 29. For that they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord, right? Because they looked at the fear of the Lord to be of no avail. I believe in the book of Malachi, it talks about the proud, being happy, and they say that it is a vain thing to serve the Lord. That's the mindset that you have of people right now. They look at fearing the Lord as like, oh, why would I do that? What's the benefit of that? What's the value of you know ordering my life according to the ways of the Most High? I don't get no money from that. There's no, personal achievements from that. There's no possessions to be gained from fearing, choosing to serve the Lord. So what's the point of doing that? I could be out here making money. I could be out here, slinging my rod and effing girls, right? That's the mindset of Jake. But it's because what their God is their belly. But what does that scripture says about that? Their end is destruction, and people don't understand the end of a thing. They don't have foresight or to be able to see, beyond the physical, beyond what's right in front of them. And that's ultimately because they don't have the spirit of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai resting upon them. Right? Reading on, it says that they would none of my counsel, they despised all my reproof. And how has they done that? By once again mocking the prophets, scoffing at the word that the prophets coming out with, making fun of them, laughing at the comedy comics like what's that guy's name? Fat nigga. Can't think of his, what I'm talking about.
Drewski?
Drewski, yeah, the water. Drewski, right? The other nigga that was talking about the Hebrew Israelites, all they do is just speak about knowledge. Like, what the fuck I'm gonna do with knowledge, right? That's the mindset of Jake. And you see, the elder Manat Zakba, he does videos on how you even have some heathen, right? Some Elamite, speaking about the Hebrew Israelites. So this word is getting out. But when they despise the reproof, it comes in a form of really attacking the servants, right? They're attacking the servants of the Lord. But that's okay because, as YAHAWASHI said, the same thing they did to the prophets of old. So there's a great reward that comes, with the territory of being, reproached for the name of the Lord. And we believe on that reward, right? Verse 31, therefore shall they eat of the fruit of their own way and be filled with their own devices. For the turning away of the simple shall slay them, and the prosperity of fools shall destroy them. Now I want to read those two in the NLT. It says, therefore they must eat the bitter fruit of living their own way. Right? There's a bitterness that is attached to the pleasures of the flesh. And once you swallow it down and once it's in your stomach, see the bitterness of the truth, it actually produces a peaceful, a fruit, a peaceful outcome. But the bitterness of, the flesh is only what? It's like the wormwood. It's gall. It's only going to just turn your stomach. It's going to ruin your insides. But because it's easy, that's low hanging fruit that you can just eat and grab. You think that, okay, I'm just going to live this lifestyle. But as Yahweh said, broad is the way that leadeth unto destruction. Verse 32, it says, it says, therefore they must eat the bitter fruit of living their own way, choking on their own schemes. For simpletons turn away from me to death. Fools are destroyed by their own complacency. And that is what you see, right now in this world, right? People are complacent, even though all of the red flashing signals is all over the earth right now, showing you that this isn't a time to be complacent, not a time to be, willfully ignorant, but yet they rather be complacent. And what is going to be the outcome of that? You're going to be destroyed from that complacency. You're going to be, go into death because you turn away, right, from the words that can lead you to life. But yeah, that's it. That's all I had.
Hey, Shalom, YAHAWASHI, Shabbat. I have the precept that you called for before. This is Malachi 3 and 14. And it reads, ye have said it is vain to serve the Most High. And what profit is it that we have kept his ordinance, and that we have walked mournfully before Yahweh Hashem Yahushua of hosts? And now we call the proud happy. Yea, they that work wickedness are set up. Yea, they that tempt the Most High are even delivered. And in the NLT, it said in the 15th verse, it says, from now on, we will call the arrogant blessed. For those who do evil get rich, and those who dare the Most High to punish them suffer no harm, right? Because the wicked is in rulership, as you were saying. So you get rewarded for doing the wrong thing. And people think that, oh, well, the Most High must be blessing you with this. And yeah, every blessing comes from the Most High, whether it be on the right or the left hand. All right. Look at Esau's blessing, the sword. Technically, you could say Esau's blessed for now. And with the blessing that he's been given, which is that sword, he's conquered the whole earth. He's taken peace from the earth, like it says in Revelation, the 6th chapter. But what's the end of it? We know the end of it. And that all goes back to the vision. As the title says, the world is at the brink of disaster. So us having the vision, us being able to foresee, that prudence, that's an aspect of wisdom, that prudence, the foresight of what's happening, we can hide ourselves in the name of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. We can shun the world. We can remove ourselves from things that would take us off the path. And we pray to the Lord to continue to put that spirit on us, because it's a battle. It's constantly pulling at us to try to get us out of this thing. We suffer a lot. We see other people that are winning and they're doing straight up wickedness, So that's the mindset of Jake, is that, well, serving the Lord, that's a life of hardship. That's a life. I mean, look at the example of YAHAWASHI. He was acquainted with suffering, man. His whole life was suffering. And this is the Son of the Most High. But look at the great reward he got after his suffering, after he sacrificed himself. That's why Romans, the 12th chapter says we're supposed to present ourselves as a living sacrifice, right? Because that's what it is to serve Yahweh by Hashem Yahushua. And though we haven't experienced the reward yet, we know that it's coming. We know that great, that beautiful, that blessed reward is coming, man. Eternal life, never having to worry, never having to be sick again. All right, never having to feel bad again. Okay, everlasting peace, because that's all Jake really wants is peace. But this world is constantly in a state of war and conflict. Even the people, they want conflict all the time, man. They'll be miserable if it's peaceful. A lot of these people, because and that's where you go back to these women. Apostle Tahar call them chaos goblins, and that's really what they are, man. And a lot of people are like that, not just women. But it's chaos goblins. Look at Esau. He feeds off of chaos, the elites. they feed off of chaos. So things being upside down, that's to their advantage. So when they go into these different situations with these wars, and you're like, yo, it seems like there's no well thought out plan. Well, that is part of the plan, to just sow chaos, right? Because when things are ordered, it's harder for him to operate in the way he does, and it just utter violence. But when things are disorderly, he can split up countries, separate them, create civil wars, create conflict, create this and that. That's to his advantage because he feeds off of chaos. Look at how things were in the beginning with Adam and Eve. It was balanced, it was orderly, we had it all. But what did he come in doing? Sowing chaos, sowing seeds of doubt. Okay. And even Ezra, I mentioned that to brothers earlier about Ezra, and I actually grabbed the precept, but basically, he had asked about these things, that basically, the wicked are winning and the righteous are suffering. Why is this so? Okay. Yeah, I got it right here. This is 2nd Ezra 4 and I'll read 26. Then answered he me and said, the more thou searchest, the more thou shalt marvel, for the world hasteth fast to pass away. This is over 2,000 years ago. He's saying that the world hasteth fast. So you see, the way that the heavenly realm looks at time is way different than us, because to us, Ezra had to go through different generations of being reincarnated. We had to go through many different times of coming back over and over and over again, right? But at this time, in the time of Ezra, it was said what? That the world hasted fast to pass away. And it said, and cannot comprehend the things that are promised to the righteous in time to come. Right. This world cannot comprehend that. That's why it's given unto wickedness. Because to them, this is all fairy tales and nonsense that we believe in. All right. And it's made to be like that. It's a stumbling block. Believing in the truth, believing in unseen powers. We haven't seen and we don't want to see the Heavenly Father because that's a terrible, scary sight. But we haven't seen Yahweh. We haven't seen YAHAWASHI, right? But we felt his spirit. It's just like the wind. The wind bloweth where it listeth. So although we haven't seen Yahweh and YAHAWASHI, we have felt their spirit, and we've seen different signs that they've given us to show us that he exists. All right, he is. All right, and his son YAHAWASHI is. Okay, but it says here, 2nd Ezra 4 and 27, and cannot comprehend the things that are promised to the righteous in time to come, for this world is full of unrighteousness and infirmities, and that's what we have right now, unrighteousness, man. And people are accustomed to it at this point. People think that this is how life should be. This is normal to people. Wickedness and evil is normalized. People just say, well, that's just how the world is, and the spirit that the Lord put upon us is like, no, we don't just accept that that's how the world is. So what do? Through the spirit of the Lord, we present ourselves as a living sacrifice, and we prophesy of the end of this world, which the Lord commanded us to do. We come against this world. Shalom. We come against this world because we want to see it end. We don't want to see it continue on. We don't want to see, just basically accepting the bare minimum. That's what people do. In their complacency, they accept all types of things, man. Things that we don't accept. We know we have to go through it for now, but our mind is not sitting here saying, well, yeah, I'm going to be here for the rest of my life just suffering, and I'm going to have to just prepare my seeds after me so that they can suffer just like I did. We don't want to accept that. That's not our mindset. We're not accepting the bare minimum. The Lord put it on our mind where we have a high expectation because that's a promise of the Lord. It's not because we're puffed up and we think, we're holier than now or that we deserve something. At the end of the day, we know the Lord promised it. Through his word, he promised that there's going to be a kingdom. There's a promise of protection. There's a promise of peace. There's a promise of everything your heart desires and righteousness. So that's why we believe in it. And the Lord gave us the gift of faith. All right, but it says 2nd Ezra 4 and 28, but as concerning the things whereof thou askest me, I will tell thee, for the evil is sown, but the destruction thereof is not yet come. Because that's all we've seen for the most part. Solomon had his short 40 years of peace. All right, you had King David's reign, where even that was tumultuous, though. It was ups and downs. All right. So there's been way more time of wickedness than there has been of righteousness and peace. The evil has been sown, right? But the destruction has not come of it yet. So people think that, well, if you do wickedness, you get rewarded for it. So that's what people want to do. All right. It says, for the grain of the evil seed hath been sown in the heart of Adam from the beginning. And that's where it begun, with the transgression of Eve and Adam following after his wife. And where did that originate from? The serpent. Okay. And the same thing is playing out now. Look at Esau Edom. Look at how he is beguiling our people with his philosophy, with his technology, with his wickedness. All right. The whole world is wandering after the beast. Okay. Which is this system. All right. NATO, the EU, America. That's the beast system. The social, political, economic, this is all that has been for people. And that's all they can see. They can't see past this system. All right. But the Lord gave us a special gift to where we can see beyond it. And we see the end of it coming. All right. And it says, and how much ungodliness hath it brought up into this time? And how much shall it yet bring forth until the time of threshing come? Okay. And basically, I'm going to jump down a bit, but it says, 35th verse, this is the point I wanted. Did not the souls also of the righteous ask question of these things in their chambers, saying, how long shall I hope on this fashion? When cometh the fruit of the floor of our reward? Because this world has been given to evil. When you read a lot of David's Psalms, he's talking about evildoers, men that's coming against the Lord, men that's coming against the men that serve the Lord. And a lot of those are very spiritual too, all right, because David had a foot on the neck of his enemies, all right? But yet a lot of the Psalms, when you read it, very much so applies to now as well, all right? And the things that we go through now. So those are timeless songs, spiritual exhortation and comfort. All right. So that when we read it, it's like, yo, this is all playing out right now. Evildoers compassing us about, all the things that's going on. You see, so the righteous, the men of old that were righteous, they also desire the same things that we desire, which is, when is the reward coming? All right. And now to see this world on the brink, this world falling, this world finally coming to an end. All right, Esau being in dire straits, okay, which that's ironic because the whole conflict is over the Strait of Hormuz, okay, because a strait is a position of difficulty, and also it can mean a narrow passage, right? So it says what in the book of Job? That he will be in dire straits, but that was it on that. Y'all got it.
Hey, kind of have a quick little article I see here. It says from Zero Hedge, Philippines declare state of emergency as energy crisis looms. Matter of fact, let me see if I can pull this up just to read a little bit, because as the title reads, the world is at the brink of disaster. And that goes straight into prophecy, as the Lord said, woe unto the world and them that dwell therein. So, although, we focus obviously because the main disaster and the main destruction is going to be here in Babylon the Great. But remember, the Lord is visiting the earth, right, that he made. So as we see in different places of the earth being visited, just think about how much more the wrath of the Lord is going to come upon Babylon the Great once he really, stretch forth his hand to this place, because the people see things happening in other parts of the earth, and they think that they are immune to those things happening here, right? They think that they're insulated from actual calamities that you see, and that we're going to, read about happening in America. Even Trump boasted on the fact about, the war, right? We have two big, beautiful oceans, between us that, we're not worried about Russia, or we're not worried about, Iran actually being able to physically, shoot missiles here, because we're far, we are between two, oceans. But the scriptures talks about the prince of Tyrus, right? Which I believe that was in Tyre, but it applies to Babylon, America, that they sit in the midst of seas, right? In the midst of the seas, and they literally do sit in the middle of two seas, and that gives the American, the Babylonian mindset of them being exempt from judgment, right? They think that they're above, the things that are happening on the earth, so they think that they're God, right? But the Lord is going to show you that you are not a God. You're just a man. But let me share this real quick. And if any brother want to just hop in and speak on it, you can do so. It says, Philippines declares state of emergency as energy crisis looms. As we outlined in our recent analysis on Australia's dangerous vulnerability to disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz, most of Asia is heavily exposed and faces an unprecedented energy crisis should the war in Iran continue to prevent safe passage of oil and natural gas from the Gulf. As Australia debates the potential for a national emergency, the Philippines has already declared one. And that in itself, goes to show you, how bad things are, right? And this is only what 3 weeks in. I seen Christine Lagarde, right, the chief lady of the ECB. She basically said like the global economic system is out of shock right now. And when she said that, it made me think of Klaus Schwab, right? Because what he said, we gotta, that's that's Haran's man right there. We have to shock the system, right? So now when you hearing this verbiage, those that watch and those that are attentive, you hear these key words that they're saying. It's like, oh, this is what they already have planned. And we've already, we've said that through the spirit that the elites of this world, this is something that they have planned, right? There's this order out of chaos. So they use this word shocking the system, right? And energy crisis would be a major shock, right? I think she said it that what they're witnessing now is like, as this article said, it's never been this bad, and it's only been 3 weeks. So as each day goes by, it's only going to just compound and get worse.
Hey,
right? It's only going to get worse. Oh, okay, that was you. Yeah, you got it.
I was going to say real quick, that's the spirit, because this is exactly the playbook they used back in 2020. It was literally one country got locked down, and then we heard about another country, and then followed by another country, and then next thing you knew, it came to Babylon, right? And then when it got to Babylon, it wasn't like the whole world shut down until it hit Babylon. And once it hit Babylon, the ripple effects went throughout the whole world. Everything changed. So it's similar to what's happening now. You got one country declaring state of emergency, which is all an energy crisis. The next country that's going to do it, and then the next country that's going to do it. Next thing you know, it becomes like a energy crisis demic, right? Where its effects are worse than so-called CV. And they did say that. They said this was going to be worse than CV. They said it's going to make CV feel like a walk in the park. Because with CV, even though you were locked down, right, you still had abilities to use your TV. People were home chilling. You know what I'm saying? People were doing all these things, but now you could add that on top of having limitations to your energy use, because that's what this is about. Okay, slowly but surely depleting people's resources so they could then end up depending on the state. Once all kinds of private life is taken away from you, you have nothing but to go back to the state for everything else. Okay, you shall be like the Lord put the curse on us, that we shall be in want of all things. We're going to go to Esau for the want of all things. That's what Esau's trying to do. But slavery didn't end. It just included everyone. Now he wants to make it official, where it's not just so-called Blacks, Latinos, Native Americans. It's just the whole world at this point. And that's always been the goal since 1776. All right. So this right here that you're seeing, you best believe, like Zaquan said, it's been only 3 weeks, right? We keep saying it's been only 3 weeks, but look how much damage that's caused. How much more in the next 3 months, right? So now you're starting to, oh shit, like damn, this, you know what I'm saying? Like a brother put on the comment board, there's going to be fuel rationing soon. That's right. Okay. And when they declare an energy crisis, that's an emergency. How do you even solve that? You know what I'm saying? Like what's the solution to something like that? You see what I'm saying? And they're not going to come up with a solution besides the MOTB being the only solution. They're going to drag this shit out all the way to they get to the point where people are clamoring for a change, a difference. And that's when they're going to offer that CHIP. It's coming. It's coming. All right. You got it.
Hey, I got what this is from The Economist. Christine Lagarde did a interview. It says Christine Lagarde's sober tone on Gulf War energy shock. And I'm just going to read the first paragraph. It says the risk from the Iran war, says Christine Lagarde, are being underestimated amid the International Energy Agency, the IEA, calls the biggest energy shock ever. the president of the European Central Bank, says expectations of a swift return to normal may be, quote, overly optimistic. We are facing a real shock, probably beyond what we can imagine at the moment. You see, so these are very, very dire words that are being said from people that are in positions that, as the scripture says in the book of Ecclesiastes, right, the keepers of the house, right, and it tells you that the keepers of the house shall what? I think it's mourn, if I'm not mistaken, right? Is it mourn, if I'm not mistaken? Let
Tremble.
me just get tremble, mourn. Yeah, they going to tremble, right? Because what they're seeing is a corrosion of the way of life that they deemed as being normal. Now, whether or not certain of these keepers are insiders, and they have a little bit more of a understanding of what the actual elites are doing, that remains to be seen. Who knows what? But regardless, they're still in, right. They're still going to be seeing the effects of this whole shaking. All right. And they're not going to really be, you see, they could be a little bit, might be a little more insulated, right? They may have, energy. When this energy crisis happens, they may direct their cities, or if they got bunkers, they go to their bunkers, but they may direct their cities to divert energy to where they live, right? Or the sections of society where they're at, while everybody else, has rolling blackouts or have just pitch blackouts. And that's going to cause a lot of, second Ezra, the 15th chapter to happen, where they should have no regard for their kings or princes. You see, because even the guy, I forgot what his title was, but I think he was like the director of economy or something like that here in America. He basically said that they're not worried about the consumer prices, right? They're not worried about the effects of consumer prices. And it reminded me of when Trump said, what are groceries? You see, these people, although you look at him and you see him, he's like, this is this new word, grocery. Like, although you see him and he's a man, the way that they live is completely separate. That's why they call the so-called 1%, right? They live a completely different type of life than majority of other people. So when all hell breaks loose, just like how we always speak about the whole pyramid, everything's going to fall upon the people at the bottom. And that's why when it happens, yeah, Jake is going to be the most affected, but these other Babylonians, they're going to be affected too, because you're still at the bottom of the pyramid as well. You're going to be used as, the basically the rug that that these elites going to walk all over. All right. But yeah, going back here, it says this week, Philippine President Fernandez Marcos Jr. signed Executive Order number 110, declaring a state of national emergency as a targeted measure focused on the energy sector in response to disruptions from the ongoing U.S. 48-year war with Iran. Approximately 98% of all oil bound for the Philippines passes through the Strait of Hormuz. The emergency declaration allows the Philippine government to exert control over fuel prices and fast-track imports from alternative suppliers such as Russia. Philippine authorities say that they have enough fuel to last about 45 days at a typical consumption level, right? 45 days. Look how fast 21 days just went by, right? 3 weeks. So they have about, 45, which would be like 6 weeks, a little bit over 6 weeks left of fuel. And Trump, once again, I believe he said, oh yeah, we're looking at, 4 to 6 weeks to end this war. I'm like, my God, once again, is it 4 to 6 weeks? It's already been 3 weeks, but this is something that the brother just said. This is the same play they did with the CV, right? 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. Then after that, they just said, hey, 6 feet apart. That's what it just became. And that's what it said. They told people you're entering into the new normal. Well, they're not even telling you this time that you're entering into the new normal. It's just going to hit you. And that's why it's going to come upon you like a woman in travail. Brother, you want to say something?
Yeah, I got something here real quick. adding on to what we're going into here, this is also from Zero Hedge. And this one says, United Airlines CEO warns summer airfares will spike, tells travelers to book now. And we're not talking about like, you know, okay, yeah, a couple, you know, $100 or $200 more. No. When we're looking here at the spikes that they're talking about, they're listing percentages here. For example, increases from Hong Kong to London is up 560%. We're not talking 50%, 60, no, 560%. So what that means is if you had a ticket that costs $50, if it went up 50%, that's $50 plus $25. That's like $75. Okay. We're talking about if it went up 100%, it would have been $100 for that ticket. This is 560% for Hong Kong to London. Bangkok to Frankfurt up 505%, and Sydney to London up 429%. And what they're saying here is along the lines of what the Zaquan read earlier. He said here that this isn't something that is going to come down overnight. He said that this is going to take a period of time, and even after this is all said and done, those prices are going to be locked in high for a period of time because airlines now need to offset the fuel costs to the consumers. And what that means is they also need to cut capacity. So now if you had certain available seats, now that's now going to be cut lower. And then the price is also going to go up. And for some tangible numbers here, they also have for Sydney, London, from last year, June 2025, you had a ticket that cost $725. This year, June, would be $1,503. So that's basically a little over double. Okay, you also have here from Amsterdam, Singapore, $664 to $1,191. So basically, what the article is going into is because of this, you've had you're having a drop of people travel demand, and on top of that, like if you are here in Babylon, you have these long ass lines. They tell you got to come like 5 hours ahead, and then that might not even be enough. And then on top of that, you're missing your flights. And then on top of that, the flight itself is costing you this damn near amount of money. And soon they might just tell you, look, bro, just go back home because you ain't flying nowhere. Like we ain't even flying nowhere. So you ain't flying nowhere. So go sit your ass down somewhere. And I did a lesson earlier today going into how there are a lot more things that are affected by fuel than you think. Even USPS prices are now about to go up because those USPS vans, they use diesel, you know? So, and I was saying like, they got to do more stops than you. Right. You go from point A to point B. They go this house, go around the corner, go over here. That's using a lot more gas. And if USPS is going to go up, who else is going to go up? Amazon is going to go up. Walmart is going to go up because when you look at your shipping and handling, guess what? Amazon is going to be like, oh, listen, if they want to charge us more, we're not paying for your shipping and handling. You're going to pay more. So the product itself will cost like, I don't know, $18, but you pay $35 because of shipping and handling. And that's only from Amazon. You want packages getting to your place, you're going to pay more. Groceries, you're going to pay more. So these companies, they can offset it like Uno, right? Draw two. And you're the one without a draw two card, and it's going to land all on you. Your electricity bill is going up. Your food prices are going up because all of them are offsetting it to consumers. Meanwhile, your paycheck is not being inflated along with inflation. So you're literally in a world of hurt. This is the beginning of sorrows.
Yeah, it affects everything. You know, like you said, going into transportation alone, look at commercial transportation. It's not just about, you know, the trucks that are bringing in your packages or your food, right? Scriptures tell you, suddenly shall the storehouses be found empty. The storehouses is not just about where they keep the food. Think of your banks. How do you think bank runs are going to happen? Because the storehouses back then was predominantly a place that was kept pretty much for the Levitical priests. Like they'll have places where they'll store food and all kinds of different things. Treasury, like it was pretty much like that, you know, for the priests. But in modern day terms, people will store, instead of having the money on yourself, you deposit it right in a bank. And then when you need it to purchase or do anything, buy food or whatever the case may be, you go in there and go get the money. Soon you're going to have bank runs because this inflation that's happening, A lot of countries are basically dumping the US dollar because of the move that Iran made in the Straits of Hormuz, right? They said, listen, you can only come through here if you're going to be trading not in the petrodollar. If you're doing business with the dollar, you're not coming through here. So you could do our oil and all this extra stuff, but you got to do it through our currency and through the yuan, the Chinese currency. Okay, so they've already laid out the groundwork. So if you try to come in here on some, oh, my dollar is greater than, bro. So because of that, a lot of countries are like, all right, cool. America is not looking good right now. Clearly, those who are in league with America are also turning on America. They could see the shift. You got the BRICS, right? You got all these different countries lining up and setting themselves up away from America, and their currency is backed by gold. It's backed by actual substance. You see what I'm saying? The American dollar is not backed by anything. Trump came in, oh, we're going to go to Fort Knox. What happened to Fort Knox? There's nothing in Fort Knox. Okay. All that money years ago, they transferred all that money into the Rothschild banks, the federal banks. That gold is actually in their banks. Okay. And you're left with this fiat currency paper that's about to be used for lighting fire in the wintertime or wiping your ass with. Okay. But going back to that point of energy affecting even, cars, vehicles, think of even Ubers. Think just even the city alone. That's going to be a problem. Even drivers it's going to be hard to come by because niggas ain't going to want to go out there to work. It's like, how much money are you going to make from picking up this customer? The same amount of money you're going to be using for gas, right? So it's like it defeats the purpose. Like you're wasting more money working to make less, right? It's like, okay, well, what I'm putting in is not yielding what I should be getting back. People are going to be like, fuck this Uber shit. I'm not doing this shit. Why would I do this? Give you free rides and work at a deficit because the money I'm making, I got to use for gas. Why would I do that? So that's going to be a problem for people who don't drive. And you got New York City, the way they set it up, they doing away with cars. This is all part of bringing in the 15-minute cities because you don't need cars now, right? You can't afford to have a car. They fucking you up with all these insurance, this and that. Energy crisis will affect everything around everything we do. And guess what? This is also going to open up the way or the door for the governments to seize complete control. All right, control. Now they're going to tell you where you can and cannot go, what time you can do certain things, where what kind of things you could purchase at a certain time. They're already thinking about bringing this idea of, gas rationings in America, where you're going to go to a gas station based on your license plate number or the certain day of the week, stupid shit like that. You think people are going to be sitting there and say, oh yeah, that's okay. Yeah, some people will do that. But for the most part, people are going to feel in their pockets. They're going to storm to the streets. Okay, Second Ezra tells you that. Okay, so this right here, what you're seeing is a very short window, but it's going to be very impactful because the CHIP got to come out. This is all leading to the CHIP. So just understand, it's not going to be long, drawn out like a 2-year process like CV. Nah, it had to happen that way at that time to set us up for this time. This time is going to be short and impactful. Okay, so get ready for that. Things are going to unravel quick. Come April 1st going down, because the plans are there. You know what I'm saying? The plans are all there, and it's time for the Lord to say, all right, cool. Step on it, full throttle, and let's do this thing. All right? Exactly.
Hey, yep. I wanted to show, because the brothers were speaking about the airport, right? And should I say the air transportation and how it's becoming expensive. And that's actually, playing right into their hand because as the scripture says that a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. Now, we know that, most travel, right? Obviously you have cars, but, air travel has become something that has been so popularized that it's normal. But when you go back 30, 40 years ago, and I was watching this video from, Predictive History a couple of days ago, and he was going into the return of history and how we're in a time where, basically you have the rise of a certain type of lifestyle, and then that lifestyle, it becomes the norm. And then you have a time where that lifestyle ends, right? The declining of that particular type of life. And we're at a point where he was saying that the type of life that people were accustomed to living and got thought to be a normal lifestyle, that's about to be over, and that came via, Pax Americana, right? And this is, something that, because I was meditating on it earlier today, where the scripture says that the triumphing of the wicked is but for a moment. When you think about America, America wasn't triumphing for 250 years, right? America had to go through a stage of, building, even when America was in its, inception and for a long period of time, the US dollar wasn't the world currency. So it really got to its point after World War II, where it became like the dominant force in the global hegemony on in the earth. And that time period from now to then, it hasn't been that long. And it really, even after that, it's really only been the last 40 years that America really has enjoyed, its heightened part of it being like on top and people, being wealthy and all of this, things being cheap and things like that. So he was saying here, I'm going to play it, how air travel 30, 40 years ago was only done by people that was really wealthy. It was only done by people that was really millionaires. It wasn't something that was so easily accessible as it is today. And as you're going to hear it, he's saying that that's what it's going back to. So when the brother read about the 560% increase, it made me think of how there's certain things that happened, pre-COVID, that once the CV happened, it never went back to that. It's always been kind of like remnants of what happened during the time of CV. That's why, like I said before, they call it the new normal, and that's what this is going to be, right? It's going to be once these prices go up, it's going to stay up. What Cardi B said, it's up and it's stuck. It's going to be stuck in this position, So let me play this real quick. Just a little portion of it. Let me know if y'all can hear it.
We're all is today flying around the world. It's very simple to do. You want it. What we can do now is get our mobiles out, go to the website, and look at where we're gonna fly to, and then book that flight for tonight. Pay using a credit card, take a taxi to the airport, get on a flight, and we're there the next morning. That's really, really impressive. Guess what, guys? You couldn't do this 20 years ago. Okay, the technology was around, but it was not widely available. Now look at.
And I actually remember, because I used to go travel with my dad often when I was younger. We used to go see family in Florida when I was younger, and I remember you had to go to the airport to buy a ticket. Right, you wasn't buying a ticket online. It wasn't something you just go like, book the flight, trying to wait for certain times. Now you had to go to the airport and buy the ticket. And as you just said, like this technology that we are so accustomed and thinking like, oh yeah, this is just what it's going to be. This wasn't around 25, 30 years ago. So for people to think like, okay, well now it's just going to be like this, you can clearly see that that's about to, go away. That's not about to be something that everybody can do, because they're going back, right? And this Pax Americana is ending, and it's only going to be meant for those that really can, the elites of the world, right? Even as I think it was Klaus Schwab who said that I think he said LA, the highway is going to be basically, turned into a park. And you're not going to have people just being able to travel, from Southern California to Northern California, that people are just going to be in their little 15-minute cities. And that's just what you're going to know. And everything's going to be there because that's the only places that you're going to be able to travel. But here it is, like how they showed you in that movie, Elysium. The elites, they get to travel all over. They get to do whatever. Their private jets, right? The people always talk about how they complain about net zero energy, but yet they use their private jets and their super yachts to go all across the world, So let me continue here.
This, where the entire world is interconnected, okay? This is a pretty stark chart where in 1950, it was considered a tremendous luxury to fly. You had to be a millionaire, basically, to want to fly for vacation, okay? Everyone else just drove their car. Now, it's like anyone can drive. And again, this happened just in the past, basically, 30, 40 years. And this, of course, is because of Pax Americana, where Pax Americana will guarantee there's no conflict in the world, and therefore, planes can just fly around. Otherwise, be shut down. Okay. All right. Well, this world is coming to an end. In the future, flights will be very expensive, and vacations will be unaffordable. Okay. All right.
So that's basically it, right? Like you just said, this world is coming to an end, right? In the future is now, right? He's not talking about, he might be trying to scale out to 10, 20 years, but the Lord said he's going to make a speedy riddance, man, and he's going to shorten these days. So the fact that you're already seeing, these things taking place while things are getting more expensive right now, it's only going to be, exponentially more expensive. That's why you got guys like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and all these guys where they're multi-billionaires. So even if a flight does become $1 million, right, to them, that's not going to be nothing. Let's say even if it's $2,000, let's say that's not $1 million. Let's say it costs a flight $2,000. Most people to go to DR right now, it could cost you $300, right, round trip. That same flight costs $2,000. Ain't nobody going to DR because you're gonna remember, this shit used to be $2,000. It's something so like this shit used to be $300. Now it's $2,000. Yeah, all the passport bros, yeah, that's gonna be done, man. If you ain't become a passport bro now, it's over. That time's done. You're gonna be stuck with these ragamuffins out here. But yeah, y'all got it.
Hey, no more liberty to gather abroad. No more of the creature comforts. And this is like showing you that they're going to eliminate that class of people in America that has been able to enjoy certain things. And it ties into a lot of different aspects of American life and society. That this is the American mindset. We're going to be on top forever. Nobody can touch us. We're going to be the shit, blah, blah, blah. People, it's a status symbol to travel. People look at it as a status symbol. So when that shit gets cut off and these people are stuck with the miserable life that they have in whatever state they at, yeah, that's when you're gonna see. And on top of it, you can't even drive nowhere. Never mind traveling to another country, because people run away from their miserable lives here in the States. That's what they do. So they go to other states to travel, and you're not even going to be able to go, a few miles away without paying a premium, let alone food. Then you ain't gonna be worried about a vacation. You're gonna be worried about how you're gonna eat. Y'all got it.
Yeah, Khan, I got a precept here. Since you mentioned that, this is Isaiah 32:9. Rise up, and it emphasizes women here. But if in society today women are lamenting for the teats, guess what? It's applying to men too. It's just women are more loud about it. So this is Isaiah 32:9. Rise up, ye women that are at ease. Hear my voice, ye careless daughters. Give ear unto my speech. Right. And a lot of people today are in that careless mindset. They think that, it's going to be as it is. It's like you have some people that throw a fit at an airport because they didn't do the research ahead of time to find out how high prices went or whatever the policy changes were. So it says here, many days and years shall ye be troubled, ye careless women. For the vintage shall fail, the gathering shall not come. Tremble, ye women that are at ease, and be troubled, ye careless ones. Strip you and make you bare, and gird sackcloth upon your loins. They shall lament for the teats, for the pleasant fields, for the fruitful vine. Because in the ancient world, the vine, the gathering, that was like the good time, right? The crops are coming in. And, if you're harvesting in that time, it's not always about just like food you're going to eat. You can sell it, right? That's how you make your money and so on. Today, it's not so, right? Today, they're not lamenting about, they're not joyous about, in gatherings. They don't do that, okay? They're happy about the benefits, okay, that they get in this society today. And they're going to mourn when they lose those. And what they get in turn for it is sorrows and pain and suffering and longing for when in their minds the good old days, which is not going to come back. But that is the bait that they use to get these people. They rent, like Aharon said, they ran the playbook with the C-19, right? They said, oh, if you want to go back to how things were, you got to come and partake of this thing. You got to roll up them sleeves, and extend those arms, right? And then we'll take you back to how things were. And that hasn't been the case. All you got was things that are even worse. Yep. You got an illusion of how things were, but that's exactly what they do. And so, like I think his name is Professor Zhang, said in his video, which he's been, he knows a couple of stuff on there, because he even mentioned in one of the interviews he did with Nima on Dialogue Works that ultimately he mentioned in there, the whole Iran war and
Eschatological.
yeah, the eschatological stuff. And then he mentioned the C-hip.
Mm-hmm.
He mentioned ultimately the way you keep them under control after you reduce them is you gotta C-hip them. Now, of all things, why mention that?
He also mentioned how after like this whole thing is going to bring in Pax Judaica, which is funny because that's really what's going to happen, but it's not going to be what he may be thinking, right? Because it is going to be peace through the rulership of the Israelites, right? Through YAHAWASHI's rulership. But he is making, when he said that the world is going to be centered basically around Israel, you know? And I don't, like I said, I don't know if he's thinking them small hats over there, but you got another thing coming if that's what you're thinking.
That's it. But no, exactly. He did say that because he said the reason they're doing all this is because of the throne of David. He mentioned that the kingdom of David, that's what they're trying to establish, you know. But like you said, he might not.
Let me find out he belong.
Oh yeah, hey, you never know.
You know, because he got popular real quick amongst the Israelites.
Came up out of nowhere.
Yep. That's a good point right there. Hey, we all to you. But I got here, Professor J. But I got a precept, another one here. This is Ezekiel 7:5. It says, "Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, an evil and only evil, behold, is come." And what we're seeing is evil. Okay, we're seeing the evil manifest itself. It's not going to get better because the Lord said only evil. Okay, that and evil is a bad time. That's why you're seeing all of these things, and it's hilarious that these Babylonians, and not just them, but mainly them, they went from, you know what, it looks evil now, but I'm sure it's going to be fine. You first tell them about the evil forecast. They say it's not going to happen in my time. I don't got to worry about that. Then it gets closer and they say, oh, you know what? No, we got to stay positive. It's going to be fine. And then it gets so bad that they say, I don't even want to hear it anymore.
Yeah.
You know, just don't even tell me. So they do everything but face the truth of reality. And then what's going to happen is reality is going to come and face them.
Yep.
You don't want to go outside? It's going to come inside.
Every time.
You know, it's going to come sit right next to you and sup with you, okay, and with pain and, like YAHAWASHI said, the beginning of sorrows. Verse 6, the end, it's like an end is come, the end is come, it watcheth for thee, behold, it is come. The end is watching for you, okay? So as much as people don't realize this is about you, it's very much about you. These things aren't happening because that's just the way the world works. And you know what? It's just happening. It just happens to be world events that are happening and it has nothing to do with you. No. This is exactly about you. All you single wicked individuals that are destined for judgment, all of this that's happening, the energy crisis, the war with Iran, it's all really to bring judgment to you. And that's what people fail to realize. And you know when you're going to realize it? When the judgment lands back on you. You wondering how is a conflict that started in California now affecting you and you in New York somewhere? Because it was always meant to affect you, but it needed to start somewhere and eventually work its way over there to where you at. Yeah, that's it.
I got a quick question. There's a book of Psalm chapter 89, verse 32. It says, "Then will I visit their transgression with the rod and their iniquity with stripes." Right? So that's that ass whooping that people about to begin. You think ice kicking people in the teeth in Minneapolis is a problem? You wait till you got IDF soldiers, all right, masquerading as regular police officers or, you know, UN troops or whatever the case may be, coming in here and wilding out in UJ communities, man. Okay, that's what's coming. Remember, there's no new thing under the sun. Remember when Herod made that decree to go slay all the male-born children under the year of 2 years and younger? What happened? Scriptures tell you that Rachel was lamenting, right? And exactly. And she would not be, you know, basically she wasn't comforted because the children are not, right? That's how you're going to have a lot of these Israelite women. The Northern tribe women, you could imagine them crying because their children being snatched away from them, right? You could imagine how people are going to have to sacrifice their young ones because of this energy crisis stuff. This is also going to bring in famines. With famines, you're going to see cannibalism, right? Oh, today we shall eat your child and tomorrow we eat mine. That type of shit is going to be happening too. Okay. And you don't put it past these women to start playing around like that. They're going to do it. Okay. They're going to do it. They'll snatch up your child right now and then start cooking them up for the family to eat. You see what I'm saying? So it's embedded in them. Plus you got social media. These people are sick, man. Okay. They're sick. And once something picks up, it just keeps on going. But that's all part of that's why the judgment is going to have to come down in this place. The Lord said what? He said what? And it says, and their iniquity with stripes. Iniquity, meaning every wickedness that you've done, it compiles. Whether we see it or not, it compiles. The Lord sees it. And when he brings that judgment, it's over with, man. Ain't no remedy, man. Okay, it's a time of judgment. It's a time, like a specific time set for judgment. So if you find yourself in that time, on the wrong side of that time, you know what's coming, man. You know, there's an old saying that says, basically, like, history is from the perspective of the one who had the victory.
The victors, yep.
Yeah, right. So we're gonna be given a narrative, a different narrative after the Lord is done with this place, because we're gonna have the victory. So we're gonna be the ones to actually tell it, the real story, how it actually happened, so it never happens again. If you leave it to these niggas, they're gonna distort it just like they're doing now. Niggas, we've been on YouTube for how many years, and you still got niggas who don't know the difference between IUIC, ISUPK, GM. They don't know the difference. This is all the Hebrew Israelites did this, all the Hebrew Israelites did that. They don't know the difference. So how much more, if something is so evident in your face, you can't tell the difference, how much more things that you can't see that's coming? Okay, you hear the warning, you can't tell the difference. Oh, is this good or is it bad? Like, you're seeing it happen in front of you. Oh, like you said, oh, no, I know it's fine. Just stay positive, you know, until it happens. Why do they keep saying let's stay positive? Because they want to stay in their wickedness, man. Okay, they want to stay being wicked. They don't want to see this place go away. They don't want to see their life change. As miserable as they are, that's why I always say these people are sick. As miserable as they are, they still want this place to keep on going, man. And shit is about to get worse, and they still want to keep this place going. Okay, why do you think they're going to take to see him? Because in their minds, this system is going to keep on going. If I don't make the change, I'm going to be asked out. You see, but we see it as the end. What the fuck am I going to take a chip for? For what? For just a few months and then that's it? For what, man? You know what I'm saying? And it's not like a liberty thing, like, oh, I take the chip and now I'm better. No, it restricts you in every single thing you can think of, right? It's just being pushed to you like it's a saving grace. But the reality is this is an imprisonment of your entire being. And as a matter of fact, it's so much of an imprisonment that you can't be saved once you take that C-hip. Okay? Like, this is a prison that you can't get out of. The Lord says, nah, once you take it, it's over with. And that's what's coming, man. Okay? But like I said earlier, this all leads down to the MOTB. This is literally the road to MOTB picks up now. Energy crisis and all this stuff, it picks up. You're going to see, man, everything they're going to start pitching is going to be digital. You'd be like, yo, every problem has a solution that's digital. Like, what the fuck? You see what I'm saying? Because it's the plan. And that's just going to unravel. And the more you notice it, you're going to be like, yo, bros was saying this. Yep. Because they told us. And we saw it for what it is, not what they told you it is. All right? You got it.
I think I asked you, Hassan.
Yeah. I don't know if brother brought up the precept in Revelation the 6th chapter, but Revelation chapter 6, verse 5 says, and when he had opened the third seal, I heard that third beast say, come and see, and I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand, and I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. And I'm listening to brothers talk about how, this event is going to have to disrupt people's lives, and the scarcity that the Lord is bringing is what's really going to hit him. And I was reading an article about the effect of the Israeli-U.S. Iran war on other nations. And one of the things that was very striking to me was the Muslims over there, right? They have this holy day coming up, the Eid al-Fitr and the Ramadan, and they ain't a damn thing they can do about it because of what the Lord has done. You got the Israelis over there trying to hold their holy day, and they ain't a damn thing they can do because they ain't a goddamn bunkers. And this is what, the spiritual aspect of it, because what hurt not the oil and the wine. Who do you see flourishing? Who do you see being amped up and more enthusiastic and being happy and joyous as opposed to everybody else in the world? It's only people who have the truth of YAHAWASHI. So that's why. So I was thinking, like, this may actually be talking about like food and other things, but spiritually, you can think of it like scarcity on any level. People. Even the schools, right? There was a state of emergency declared in Bangladesh or Pakistan. I'm not really sure what happened, but really all these nations over there around, India and Iran and all these people, they don't even go to school anymore. They shut down the universities and school because it costs money to transport people from where they need to go into where they need to go. And this is what the Lord is doing. That scarcity, look at that's from one thing. That's just from oil. That's not food though. That's just from oil. And look at what the Lord has done, you know. And this is why the scripture says, you know, a man is like, you know, like Jacob, that weren't, you know, how the scripture talks about how like, can a man strive of God? Because a man is so much more mighty than the Most High is so much mightier than a man, and a man is very fragile. Look at how just one thing, oil, and the everything, the conception of society itself is thrown out of course. That's just one thing, you know. So the Lord is very, he watched this place being built. Matter of fact, he put the spirit in man to build society the way it is. So he knows how to dismantle it like Jenga. He knows all the weak points and everything to have it all crashing down, you know. So every aspect of society is being affected negatively in this world, except for those in the spirit of YAHAWASHI, hurt not the oil and the wine, which is why we keep telling you the importance of this truth. And that's why even we know that this is in the battle of Armageddon, right? And we know the MOTB has not come to pass, but the Lord is showing us events that makes the prophecies that we've been talking about inevitable. Now, no one has any other, no one has any objection as to World War III being a possibility. This is why the Lord says that when you see part of these signs come to pass, then you will believe, then you want to understand that the end that I'm talking about, YAHAWASHI's appearance and that burning and all these things will come to pass. But people are not seeing this grace period, you know. And so, yeah, this is what's going on now. And even Haran, to your point about how, you know, don't put it past these women to go ahead and start doing these cannibalism. You know, you notice in this world that the idea of motherhood is like different from how people used to view it back in the days. That's why it's nothing for a woman to have like 14 abortions or you know, like starve a child for like a day or two just so she can get her nails done or some shit like that, you know, or have a bunch of thugs or killers around a crib, you know, doing drugs and all that shit, knowing how that can affect each other, or be drinking, knowing how because it's nothing to them, right? The life of a child it's so far less valuable to them than it was back in the days. So when the Lord brings these things, these scarcity, believe it, bro. These bitches will be out here, you know, doing these crazy shit. You know, we keep telling Babylonians, and they keep thinking it'll never happen because they've always had so much. But one day, what happens? And it's not. It's the point at which they even become feral won't even be or like on a level of Africa where they don't get water, like no water inside, like them really, really bad places. The Lord might even have you one square meal per day. There may not be no food, but there may be some bread. You know, the end of the bread that nobody wants to eat. They may they may be that over there. You could have been good. Just eat that, put some fucking butter on it. You would be good. But that'll be the point where Jake start wilding out. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, because of how Babylon has been raised, they just anything less than excessiveness, they start bugging out. They will complain unless they have it in excessiveness. They will complain, you know. So yeah, that was it on that.
Hey, what's the Burger King mantra? Have it your way. You know,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's the mindset that Americans have. You know, I want the double Whopper with the extra large fries and the extra Diet Coke because I'm watching my diet. But you see them big backs in the cars, see the fucking Prius, mad big, taking up 2 seats. You know, with it, extra meal, like that's America. You don't see nobody else. Should be stacked like that, and she eat the whole shit. She eat the whole shit, man. You know, but that's the American. That is the American philosophy, right? That's America for you. You know, and that is why when the Lord looks at this place, so like, yo, they gotta go. They just gotta go. But I want to just get a little bit more on here. It says energy rationing programs are being instituted across Asia, and questions are rising about a possible domino effect on the global markets, right? And this is what brothers are saying, right? It's going to be a trickle effect, a domino effect, just like how the CV was. You know, the shutdown happened in China, And they were showing a whole bunch of propaganda videos of people just walking in the street, just passing out, blood coming out of their nostrils. Everybody over here was like, oh my God, this shit crazy, right? And then when he came over here, it was in, I think it was Seattle, Washington first. And you had Cardi B. Oh, it's real, y'all. It's real. You know, that's the same thing, right? And that was all just really just fear mongering. When you talk about fear mongering, that was the definition of fear mongering, because it was nowhere near as deadly as they perpetrated it to be. So how much more when it's actually deadly, right? How much more when it's actually dark, when there's actually fuel rations, right? When it's actually no food in the grocery stores. What are people going to do? That's why the scripture says, man, they shall have no pity upon their neighbor because of lack of bread and for great tribulation.
Hey, real quick, Zaquan, I was going to say that during that CV thing, when they started the propaganda, and it was I remember the most briefings that Cuomo gave, it was literally every single day. And all they mentioned, like literally every day, was cases. Literally, that's all we kept hearing. Oh, there's this many cases today, 22,000 in this place and 2,000 here and 500,000. Every day cases. They were like, oh, the ICU beds and the hospitals are slumped with people, and oh my goodness. And guess what? Pastor Ron Love did a video. He was going to some of these hospitals that they claim is all packed and is all crazy, and it was empty all over the place. Parking lots empty. And he's like, yo, where's all the people that they're saying is being stuffed up in trailers that's, you know, freezers and all kinds of shit, and there's not enough beds and all this dumbass shit that was happening. They had to open up the Javits Center, and what happened to all that, man? That was all a performance. That was all theatrics, because guess what? Remember, I think it was 2012 Olympics. They depicted the whole CV thing. You know, yeah, they show you that years in advance. And I believe not too long ago, one of these Olympics that they did, they also depicted where it was like a white horse and all these different things that they show you these things. They literally put it in your face, like, yeah, this is what's coming. And it was mass satanic. And when you look at it, like these opening ceremonies they do, it's mass satanic. You see all these Masonic pyramids and the eyes and the fire and the pentagram, and they depict what they're about to do. And then there was one that they had like I think it was the opening ceremony for CERN, and they had like the sheep, like people dressed like sheep, and it was mad creepy, man. It was weird shit. You know what I'm saying? And we were watching it like, yo, what the fuck? And that was the elites mocking the people and saying, we could put it right in your face. You are the sheeple. You are the ones that were about to make, you know, we're going to call you, basically. The depopulation, that's next. That the energy crisis is going to lead to depopulation, because that's their first tenet on their Georgia's guidestones. They have to depopulate. That's the first thing. And then go from there. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, if people can't see it at this point, there isn't much we can say. And that's how you know that the Lord is about to take us off the streets, because at some point, it's almost like, okay, the Lord is fed up with just us repeating the same thing over and over again. It's like, okay, I can't hold this up anymore. Just bring the hell. Just like he told the angels that are holding up the winds in the four corners of the earth. He said, hold on until we have all the servants that are sealed and all that. And what did John say? He said, yo, Lord, like, what, like, were you angry at the trees and, you know, the sea and the plant? That's all depicting when the missiles hit, the kind of destruction that's going to cause, right? So just understand that it's like, at some point, the wrath of the Lord will be felt, okay? And the days leading to that is going to be just tragic. A lot of people we're going to see, you're going to be like, damn, I never thought this motherfucker would end up like this. You're going to have people taking themselves out, right? Because the stress is so much. You're in debt. You know, you don't know how you're going to get out of this. Your kids are hungry. You know what I'm saying? Your job just laid you off, and you're just like, yo, my life just is crumbling. There's nothing I can do. And you turn to your left, somebody's going through worse than you. You turn to your right, they're going through worse than the person on your left. You know, it's like, yo, what the fuck? You know, you look ahead of you, there's all danger. You look behind you, it's like, I just escaped danger. Now I'm going to even more danger. That's the depiction of the evil times that we're trying to show you. Okay. And it manifests in things like energy crisis, where you go from one evil to the next. And an evil is when your pockets is getting hit. Okay. Your insurance is going crazy. You don't have no health care. You have all these different things that people actually call essential in this society, all gone, just like that. And the government is going to be expecting you to come crawling to them for that aid back. Okay. And it's going to affect who the most? The women. Okay. You so-called Black, Latina women, you've been pimping the system left and right. You have 8 children from 8 different men just so you could pimp all these men. Guess what? The system is going to turn back and pimp you. Are you going to be able to step up to the game at that time? because at that time you're not going to want to go out there. Just like these women that are being deployed and drafted. Guess what happened? They gave you the bonus. You enjoyed it. There was one chick that happened to her. She got the bonus. She was chilling for like a few years, and they called her out like, "Hey, listen, it's time to pay up. You're gonna have to come serve some time out here." She's crying like, "I didn't think this was gonna happen. Like, y'all gave me the money, but y'all didn't tell me I was gonna have to serve." Like, bitch, what the fuck you gave me the money for? So when it comes time, you can bring your ass up in here. You spent all the money, you're gonna have to pay us back, or you're gonna serve some time in jail, or you go to that war. Which one is it gonna be? You see what I'm saying? So a lot of these chicks thought they're going to use the military as a route to escape reality of suffering and going through the grind. Listen, man, now they finna take your ass overseas to go get grinded into powder. That's what's coming next for you women. Okay, you can't shoot a gun. You're gonna be taken out quick.
Use that gun.
Use that gun.
Yep. And it says, I'm gonna keep reading. It says the Philippines announcement comes a day after South Korea launched a nationwide energy-saving campaign, calling on people to ride bicycles for short trips and reduce the length of showers. Now, imagine telling Babylonians that, right? When's the last time? I mean, I got a bike, but when's the last time you see like adults just out here just riding bicycles? They don't do that shit because that takes energy. That takes, you gotta actually get up, ride. People ain't doing that shit, man. Right? People don't even have bicycles. I remember when people try to buy bicycles during the CV and there was a shortage on bikes. You could, people, because people, there was nowhere to drive to. So people just wanted to go out and just ride a bike around and do things, but you couldn't even go buy a bicycle. It was a low stock on that because of the supply chain, right? Because those bikes don't get produced in America. Those shits come from China, they come from Vietnam, right? They come from all these other countries, which these countries are the ones that are actually being affected right now. Remember, America is top consumerism. So when these countries get affected, their economies get affected, those economies are not operating normally, which is going to have a direct effect on the supplies that are sent to America. And this is why it's the position that America is in, the fact that it's not, a self-sustaining country is really going to be a trap that the Lord has set for this place, right? It says, where were we? And reduce the length of showers. Japan, meanwhile, said Wednesday that it would soon begin releasing oil from its emergency reserve, equivalent to a 30-day supply. Thailand and Vietnam have also asked citizens to take steps to curtail energy use. China's exposure to Iran and the Hormuz situation could be detrimental. Over 35% of the energy supplies, their energy supplies pass through the Strait of Hormuz, and 15% of their oil comes directly from Iranian wells. That said, China also has a large oil buffer with enough energy supplies to last around 4 months. The emergency declaration in the Philippines is initially set to last 1 year and serves as a tool to provide the government with more legal flexibility to respond to the crisis. Executive Order 110 enables the government to, and it goes into that. But I just seen something about this where it made me think of where it says the legal frames, right? Whatever. And I just seen that Trump just said that he's actually I have it pulled up here. He says that he is signing an order to instruct the Secretary of Homeland Security, Mark Wayne Mullen, right, which is the guy that they just put in office, interestingly enough, to immediately pay our TSA agents in order to address the emergency situation and to quickly stop the Democrat chaos at the airports. It's not an easy thing to do, but I'm going to do it. Now that's interesting, right? Because what he's basically is saying that he's going to bypass Congress and sign an executive order to have TSA get paid. And in this, he says something here. Where was it? Where is it? Blah, blah, blah. So it says, because the Democrats have recklessly created a true national crisis, I am using my authorities under the law to protect our great country as I always do. Now he's calling it a national crisis. And if he's calling it a national crisis and he's saying he's going to do something that is not quote unquote easy to do, but he's going to do it and he's going to pass by Congress, then what is he about to enact in order to be able to have the so-called powers to do this? He would have to enact a national emergency. And when you enact a national emergency, that's basically, a martial law type of scenario. And where the Congress basically doesn't have any powers anymore. All of the powers is coming from the executive branch. And when you even read, certain people say certain things, it's like, he's declaring himself a king. And it's happening right in front of your eyes, right in front of your faces, but they're using their same mantra, problem, reaction, solution. So they see these problems and they're not thinking about, what these steps that he's taking and what is going to be the bigger issue. They're just thinking about the immediate so-called fix that he is doing right now. But you create enough problems, nobody's going to care about how, the effects of the solutions. All they're going to care about is the solution, right? And how it makes them in a better position. And that's why the scripture says, speaking of going down to Egypt for help, right? You trust in the shadow of Pharaoh, but it's going to be to your confusion and to your shame. And that is all a trap, right? It's all a trap that the majority of the world, right? The people that really are not in the truth, they're going to fall into. Let me see if there's any more. I know we want to close it out. Slocky. Yeah, so it says, enables the government to fast track procurement and imports of the fuel and petroleum products, and alternative suppliers exert control over fuel prices if needed to prevent excessive hikes or profiteering, ensure orderly distribution of fuel, food, medicine, and other basic goods. Orderly distribution. So this is happening over there in the Philippines and other Asian countries. And the scriptures does tell you that in the book of 2nd Esdras 16th chapter, woe be unto the Babylon in Asia, woe be unto the Egypt and Syria, right? So the woe, right, distress and anguishes is coming upon all parts of the earth. You got it, bro.
Yeah, in the book of Nahum, when you read the 3rd chapter about the downfall of Assyria, which through the Spirit it applies to Babylon, it talks about how, the Lord puts out a challenge to draw out the water and see if you can survive the siege that the Lord is bringing against you. And that's exactly when Zaquan, you read about how they have these reserves, these oil reserves. This is like what you do against a siege. Everybody knows that the day of the Lord is inevitable. It's in the back of their mind. So that's why they have all these stores in it. That's actually one of the reasons why they also trade, right? America, for example, has a massive oil, in Alaska, but they don't like to use it. They like to just buy it from somewhere else because they like to hold on to it in case some bad shit happen. Then they can survive whatever siege is going on around the world, and that's what goes on. So they're trying to. When the Lord issues a challenge and says, "See if you can get rid of it," this is all going to be part of His glory. We're actually going to be telling these stories, and we're actually going to include all these details. And Babylon had like a fucking 200 million barrels of oil, and they thought they were gonna, and the Lord just did this and that, and it's gonna be a beautiful story, man. When YAHAWASHI does it, it's gonna be, what Trump is gonna be beautiful. Yeah, it's gonna be beautiful. yeah.
Yep, that's it. All right, let's finish this out. It says authorize advance payments on contracts if required for timely supply, activate a whole of government framework, including support packages for livelihood, industry, food, and transport, right? Whole of government. The last time the world faced a similar threat of energy shortages was the Arab oil embargo of 1973 following the Yom Kippur War. It was this event coupled with a massive devaluation of the US dollar that triggered a stagflation malaise that lasted until 1981. It was also the event that led to the US diversifying its energy resources to avoid future dependency on OPEC. Only 7% of all oil bound for the US travels through the Strait of Hormuz. So this is why they think that they are, immune to this whole energy crisis, right? And this is the Lord putting them in a slippery place, right? globalization, you're not, America is not insulated from globalization. And the fact that you have people, and you hear Trump, the fact that he always has to say it, though, hey, we're going to be good. I think he said it earlier today. I thought prices of oil was going to be higher than what they are now, honestly. So he says this and people buy it. Like, oh yeah, it's not really that bad. That's it. But wait till a couple weeks and months go by, and it's going to just hit you like that. Remember, it tells you that because of the scourges, right? They're not always minded, they're not always mindful of the scourges. Matter of fact, I got it pulled up. Let me get it real quick. 2 Ezra 16, verse 19, it says, behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent for scourges, are sent as scourges for amendment. But for all these things, they shall not turn from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of the scourges. And that's the mindset that you see here, right? The people are not mindful of, what is taking place. I did a video earlier today on the interview that the Fox News did in Miami with the, beachgoers, spring break. And they was asking them, what do you think about Ayatollah? He was like, what the fuck is Ayatollah? I never heard that word a day in my life. What's the most important things to you? Bitch said Starbucks. The other chick said, which bikini I want to wear. The other guy said, I'm just trying to, just knock out a bunch of women I can get. That's and these are all college age kids, right? They're on spring break, college age kids. And these, when you think of college, you think of, all right, these are the future, of America, right? The ones that are going to be taking the place of the older generation, and they're going to be in businesses and all these things. But the mindset that they have right now is like, you can clearly see that this has to be the last generation. Like, and the majority of the people they were interviewed were Edomites. So I'm just like, you're supposed to be and this is why Esau, the older Edomites, they're looking at it like, yeah, we just got to use these people for cannon fodder because their minds are just done. And that's the drunkenness that Esau has made himself drunk with, right? This whole mindset of carelessness. Now you are the product of that is this next generation, this Gen Z, Gen Alpha, Beta, whatever it is, that you can clearly see that they don't got two brain cells that they can rub together to make a coherent and a constructive thought, man. And there, as it says in the days of Noah, that's what it is. Their imagination of their heart is to do evil continually. Because the one bitch said, I'm just out here, I'm just, trying to hook up with a different guy every day. And she said, oh, God, he asked him, well, how many days you been out here? 10 days. How many guys you ain't hooked up with? 10. And he's like, well, you know any of their names? No. And it's just no shame, no nothing. But that's why the wrath of the Lord is going to come upon us. The Lord has to act. He has to.
And it's crazy that these people, like Zaquan, you said, these are college age people, and these are the same people that vote for a nigga like Mamdani because they have the ability to vote, and they ain't got no brain cells, but yet they're put in place to make decisions that governs how we live. These people are part of that shit. You see what I'm saying? So when you get a nigga like Mamdani and shit like that, then you know why niggas like Mamdani is up in there doing all this shit that they do.
Eating Taco Bell on camera and
shit. But this is what they do, bro. It's a clown show. And it's all it's showing you, like Zaquan, you said, if this is the representation of America in the next few generations, then you know that America is done. Because the last so-called staple of America, or what America was known to be like, is what you see as Trump. Okay, that's the last form of a pure American, like a red-blooded American man. Like that's a Trump nigga. He thinks he has the power. He's the epitome of an Edomite man. You know what I'm saying? He looks down on everyone. Scriptures tell you like his look was more stout than his fellows. He has that energy. So it's the same way as the average American. That's why they push this whole MAGA shit. All these so-called white men that are voting for Trump and all that shit, and then you got Jakes that are trying to look like they're white, so now they vote for all this dumbass shit, man. It was all carefully engineered and orchestrated to come to this very point, where people can't really make real decisions that will govern them. You got kids running around at spring break, and they're being interviewed, and they have no idea what the hell is going on. So it's easy for Esau to say, okay, we got them. Subversion has definitely worked. They're not teaching them nothing that's important in school. You know what I'm saying? Now we could just put them in work. That shit ain't no more work. So guess what? AI gonna take over, robots gonna take over, and just put their asses in the draft the ass, take them to the military, let them go blow themselves up or some shit. You know,
Yeah,
that's
you have Melania Trump walking out with the robot in the White House talking about, oh, this is going to be your future educators. So they're showing you right there, like, yeah, the kids are going to be being taught by robots, man. It's completely true. I'm gonna finish it up here, and then unless I got something, we can close it. It says, behold, 2 Ezra 16, verse 21, behold, victuals shall be so good cheap upon earth that they think themselves to be in good case. And even then shall evils grow upon the earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. For many of them that dwell on the earth shall perish of famine, and the other that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy. And that's really the position that we're in right now, right? And especially here in America, they've gotten accustomed to things being affordable, and even though that's going up, right, but it is still somewhat affordable, where you can still go and live this quote unquote Babylonian carefree life, and they think themselves to be in a good case, even though you have the plagues and all of these things brewing. As we read in the headlines, reading these articles, it's showing you how it's like a wave just slowly coming over the earth, and it's starting in the east and it's going to come in the west, and when it comes here, it's going to stay here, and it's going to be like the worst part of the storm is going to take place in Babylon the Great. So unless I got something, we can close it out. Good.
Yeah.
So, with that, Lord willing, this was edifying and exhorting unto the elect. And in closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahawah, Bahashem, Yahawashai, Bahashem, Rakah, Kodash. And until next time, shalom to the elect.